Hello, everyone, for the next episode of the Spinsters Get Current. We're not going to lie, we're not great at watching new movies. I'm still stuck in the 70s watching Italian horror, and Jess is all over the place with what she's watching. We're not great at it. That's why we started this series of the Spinsters Get Current, so we can watch new films and kind of, well, be up to date on at least on things that we as Canadians have access to, because I think that's a portion of what makes it kind of challenging for us is if we're not going to film festivals and we just don't have the access to it, we're just not able to really watch it. I know for sure that's one of the things for me. Thankfully, Shudder is putting out more new releases, which we both have a subscription to, so that's definitely helpful. But usually we're a year or two or three or four behind things that have come out. But we do try to see things that we either are really pumped about, we're really interested in seeing, or the horror community won't shut up about. So then we try our best to see these things. Also, because our listeners, you folks at home, you want to hear our thoughts and opinions on it. So yes, like I said, we're trying to remedy this to do more of these mini-sodes of watching current films. So you're going to find out whether we love them, hate them, or both. So be warned, there are spoilers ahead for the chosen film today, Seance from 2021, written and directed by Simon Barrett.
All right, and so the synopsis for this film is that at a prestigious Fairfield Academy, an elite boarding school for girls, 6 friends jokingly engage in a late-night ritual calling forth the spirit of a dead former student who reportedly haunts their halls. Before morning, one of the girls is dead, leaving the others wondering what may have they awakened. So Seance. So right away, you're just like, oh my God, this is going to be a scary film, right? Seance. Because seances are scary for me, Kelly.
Yeah.
But some quick fun facts about this film. Mixed reviews when it came out. There's both positive and negative. And this is the first directorial debut of Simon Barrett. We've always known him as a writer, and I know Kelly is I love Simon Barrett, so she's got some great facts about him as well.
Not necessarily facts, but if folks are unfamiliar with Simon Barrett's work, yes, this is his directorial debut, which I'm really excited for him. And I was really pumped to check this one out because, one, it was accessible on Shudder, and I love Simon Barrett and his work. So he wrote A Horrible Way to Die, You're Next, which I love. He wrote segments in VHS and VHS 2. He was also one of the people involved with VHS 94, which Jess and I also watched as a new release and both loved. He wrote Temple, The New Blair Witch, and, folks, The Guest. A movie that I am obsessed with, absolutely obsessed with. It's actually just one of my favorite movies. So the dream team is Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett together because they wrote... So he wrote, Wingard directed, You're Next, The Guest, and A Horrible Way to Die. So I was super excited about this. And apparently Simon Barrett is involved with the American remake of I Saw the Devil, which I'm definitely weary of a remake of that incredible Korean film. But with him writing it, it makes me feel a little bit better about it. I will likely check it out, either out of morbid curiosity or just because I like Simon Barrett.
That is fair. That is totally fair. So before we get into our thoughts and feelings about this film, I just have some fun facts about seances because I think seances are really cool. And seances come from the French word session, or in English, it came to mean people gathering and receiving messages from the spirit world, either led by a spirit medium or not. And it was really popular in the 19th century, especially among spiritualism and spiritualists. We talked about this a lot before in our ghost episode back in the day. It's episode 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know. But yeah, there's various ways you can do seances. They can be religious. They have stage mediumship, where you actually have someone on a stage who performs a seance for people. Leader assisted, so sitting around in small groups in a semi-dark room with a medium leading you, as well as, or more informal ones like pulling out a Ouija board and using pendulums and stuff like that. So there's supposed to be a means of a way of contacting spirits, contacting the dead, and crazy things could happen. Kelly and I have been to a couple seances over the last couple of years, and I've always been freaked out and seen some crazy stuff happen. And Kelly has challenged her own skepticism, but has also become a little, I guess, less afraid of them.
Definitely less afraid. And I'm going to one tonight, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah. So, needless to say, when I walked into watching this film, I was excited because I'm like, oh, Seance. It's gonna be like a Seance movie. It's got to be scary. I need a scary Seance film. And unfortunately, this was not the case.
So, which to me, but like I don't know that much about seances, but what they do in this film, either in the beginning or when they makeshift that spirit board, would either one of those things be considered a seance technically?
Yeah, well, technically
Okay.
the
Right.
last, not the beginning one. Like the beginning
Yeah.
one was like kind of like
Bloody Mary thing.
Bloody Mary type
Yeah.
thing. What we do as like teenagers, you know, doing the ghosts,
Yeah.
like what you did on the past weekend as well too. You know, speaking of Mary, trying to conjure something. But what
Yeah.
they did in the library with the makeshift spirit board was was a seance. However,
Gotcha.
she was using a cell phone, and I'm like, that's an electronic device. So already this is a sham because electronic devices, you know, all electromagnetic stuff and stuff like that is supposed to impact. So you don't mess with that. So anyway, yeah.
Right. I was worried. I was like, is this even technically a seance? Did they already fuck up?
Well, I was making notes. I'm like, technically wrong.
Yeah.
But this is right.
Yeah.
This is right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But overall, pretty on point. Okay.
Yeah.
Minus the fact that, spoiler, like we said, there's gonna be spoilers. There was magnets and it wasn't real.
Yeah.
But you know, that's fine. Great. I'm glad that was. So let's talk about the movie overall. Yeah, I know you have some likes and dislikes. I enjoyed the premise overall. It does have that like classic prank gone wrong type thing, but then the supernatural element is there. So that's fine. It's also teen girl horror. I like that. I'm very drawn to teen girl horror, high school horror. So already like that my interest was peaked going into it.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you?
Well, for me, it was the imagery was lovely in this film. Like, I loved the idea that they were all in a old, like, classic boarding school, and like you said, young girls getting together, scaring each other with, like, you know, ghost stories in this old boarding school. Because you have so much opportunity with so much really cool imagery, and that's also kind of why I really like the Blackcoat's Daughter a lot, is because of that same kind of premise. That one does it really well. I'm getting scared for me, but this one, it didn't do that. I'm like, and I felt like there was an opportunity missed in using that building so much more.
Underutilized the environment.
Yeah.
I can see that. Absolutely. So for me, initially, I thought that honestly, the premise in the film was quite generic, not hugely unique. You know, there's this masked killer stalking young women. It's like this murder mystery whodunit type thing. But I agree, it looked really nice, really well produced. It was really well creative. I love the score. The score was great. It went from like nice instrumental, kind of like older, which would suit the aesthetics and the atmosphere of an old boarding school, but then it had some like synthy kind of stuff as well, which was very Simon Barrett, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. So it's like the hip blending with like the old together. So I was into that. Not at all was I ever scared, except for one part that made me jump out of my skin. So objectively and subjectively, I don't think this is a scary film. I wouldn't I wouldn't say anybody going into this should expect to be spooked at any point. But there is one jump scare that, for whatever reason, I did not see coming, and I literally jumped out of my skin and spilled my tea. And I was like,
"Oh my god, what was that?
Well
Which
done."
one was it?
It was when our main girl, Camille, just reaches over to like grab something off of the side table, and the hand comes up. Everything just happened very quickly, and I was just not prepared, and I just about died.
Okay, yeah. No, that was something that I like had this similar thing. Like, it is not scary. Like, in the beginning, I'm like, there were a good couple good scares. I was like, ooh, that was good. But then over time, I started predicting what the next one was going to be. I'm like, okay, you've overused it. And then like the final scene of the ghost, I'm like, it looked so bad. I'm like, when Camille looks up and sees Carrie in the window, I'm just like, oh, those are really bad graphics right there. Like, would have been better not to have seen the ghost. Maybe we just had her like look at the window and we just know that's
like the curtain moves or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Just something more subtle.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
agree with you that the premise was very generic, especially because like at first like I was like, going into it, I'm like, okay, like this is genuinely like okay, cool, like I got a ghost and like yeah, that's very classic, girl coming back getting revenge or something like that. But then when it turned into this typical stalker slasher with someone with a mask and killing off people, I was just like, and here we go. Like
But it
now I'm
actually
trying to predict.
blends the slasher with the supernatural because
Mhm.
at the end it's like, yeah, there is a ghost,
Yes,
but
yeah.
that's not the one killing people. And I
The
was
ghost
like,
was a helpful
interesting.
ghost. The ghost,
Yeah.
it was helping them. That was like
Yeah.
they're her best friend trying to help her,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what bothered me. And then because of course too, the killers are very generic too. Like
Mhm.
like our guy Trevor was really just like a psychopath and just
Yeah.
wants to, and he's clearly like white misogynistic. And then Bethany, who's the second killer, was the one who's like behind it all. She was just generic as well. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just killing people to get up in life. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, yeah. So over like, yeah, I'd say initially I thought going as I'm watching it, really like the first two thirds, because it's the last half, the last bit of the movie is in my mind quite different.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people, I've heard rumblings of people saying that same thing. So let's get into the characters.
Yeah.
I thought the acting was very fine. I like the girls overall, but I wanted more. Like I wanted more
Yeah.
from the girls, bigger personalities. I wanted to be campier. Maybe like Mean Girls, but spooky. Like the girls were fucking. They were mean. They were
They were.
throwing punches. Like Alice was such a bitch. I'm gonna say,
Oh my God.
which
Yeah.
I enjoyed so much. But I wanted more. I wanted more from my girls. If it's going to be a tag team of these high school girls, give me more personality. Though I did really like Helena. She was very relatable and very adorable and sweet and likable.
I agree with you. That to me, I remember writing a note being like flat. Everyone just feels flat to me.
Yeah.
Even like,
Yeah.
Camille and her
Yeah.
mysterious background. And I was like, okay, like point for, Simon Barrett there. He's keeping with his trope of mysterious individual has these abilities and can use a lot of weapons, because I kept asking myself like, why does Camille have all these weapons? Who is Camille? What is her story? But then
Mm-hmm.
at the same
Mm-hmm.
time too, though, with all the other girls, and you have a diverse cast of characters, a lot of queer
Yeah.
characters as well. But like, yeah, Alice, why was she so angry all the time? What was her issue? And at one point, like Yvonne's like, we can't bother Alice, she was sleeping. I'm like, why? Is she going to do something? Is she like, is there something wrong if you wake her up or something at
Yeah.
this time of night? So like,
So
I
she's just a
felt
bitch.
she's just a bitch. She's like, okay. But like at points I felt really uncomfortable with like some of like how mean they were. I was just like, like no one's likable to me right now. Like except for Helena,
Yeah.
because she was just so sweet and just trying to be nice. But also like I related to her because she talks about when she was friends with Carrie and how like they were really close, and then Carrie got on with his, other group of girls, and then they were no longer
Yeah.
friends. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I understand that. I went through that as well. Like when you were
Mm-hmm.
close to someone and then they move on to other groups of friends and they're all cliquey and stuff like that. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
then yeah, like
Yeah.
Helena was the only really character I really could relate to and enjoyed.
Yeah, we kind of just got more from her, but yeah, everybody
Mm-hmm.
flat is a really good. A lot of beigeness going on with a lot of our characters, unfortunately. I mean, I kind of like you kind of see them because they're kind of this opposing force, like Camille and Helena, and then the other group of girls. But as things start to happen, folks start to
Mm-hmm.
die, or you think they're dead. It
Yeah.
kind of starts bringing them together, and they kind of start working together and put their differences aside, which I wish there was more of that too, like more of that bonding, the trauma bonding essentially
Yeah. Yeah.
of their friends disappearing and dying and like terrible things being seen. So I just wish there's a little bit more. I think that was also a bit underutilized, a potential for wonderful sisterhood and bonding and stuff like that to
Mm-hmm.
see.
Yeah.
Um, and then Suki Waterhouse is the woman who plays Camille. And I was like, she
Yeah.
looks so familiar to me.
Yes. Yep.
So I
Yep.
had to
Yep.
IMDb her, and she was in The Bad Batch and Assassination
Yes.
Nation.
Yes. Yes.
But she was so subdued as a character. But then I was like, it makes sense once you get to the ending, but it's hard for that to be rewarding. I could see people not liking that because she's just very subdued, but she kind of has to be, minus her throwing her own punches around because she's not going to take any shit, which I totally get
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
understand. But she's just because she's there for a mission, she has something she has to do. So she's not there to like really be involved in all of this. She's just here for her job and the goal that she wants to accomplish. So I get that, but she also was still very just like muddled.
Well, that's what I mean. Like we had this character with this mysterious past, right? Like even Helen's like, "Why do you have weapons?" And I remember writing at points like, "Where did she get this knife? Where did she know how to do this?"
That's
and then I'm like, "Is she, So I'm like, okay, so similar type of character to as like Aaron in You're Next, and I'm gonna blank on the guest. Why can't I remember his name? Dan Stevens' character, because I know it's just
David.
David. So David, they all had these like mysterious backgrounds, and they all had, but like you get more information to understand why they're doing what they're doing, but you don't really find that out about Camille until the very end. She's just like, I just came to like to find out why my friend actually killed herself and like repay a favor to her. But even then though, she's like, I need to change my name. I need to go. And I'm like, who are you? Like, why was she so important? And what was your past? And why you're here? And now you're just going to leave and then maybe someday see Helena again. And also you have feelings for each other. That was like really nice at the end. Like when they kissed and we were like, okay, cool. But I didn't expect it. Cause I'm like, I was not seeing this type of relationship coming out of this between these two women.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I was totally fine to see that at the very end. I thought that was lovely. And I thought that might happen when they were laying in bed together. But I was also really just hoping for a platonic relationship where they could just show women just being friends and being close. And yes, you can hold hands. Like terrible stuff's happening to these young girls right now. So yes, let's hold ourselves for comfort. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was really hoping that was what it is, because we need more of that as well. I think just those types of relationship and platonic love and platonic snuggling and, those types of things and like physical comfort and stuff like that. Though I was totally fine with that. But I mean, I could have gone either way. So I'm not upset, but it was kind of just like, oh, and now you're kissing. Okay. I didn't get that vibe from Helena. I didn't get it from either one of them, but I'm also, I probably would miss that anyways, but
like I noticed a couple signs, and that's why I had the same kind of thought as well. I was like, oh, is there something developing between these two? And then I started, and then all of a sudden they kissed at the end. I was like, okay, so I was right. There was going to be this queer relationship, because I picked up on a lot of the queer characters throughout the film, but like you said, it was so subtle and just unexpected. And then also, like you said, it goes to this binary that like women can only fuck each other or hate each other. They can't be friends with each other. They can't actually care for one another just as friends and be close and platonic. It has to be either kind of like that whole idea that men can't compartmentalize. Like, it was like almost the same thing for like queer women. And I was just like, what? And I'm saying this as a queer woman, like, it's like, as much as I love seeing more and more queer representation in films, at the same time too, that I want it to be done well and done in a way that it feels more genuine, where it doesn't feel like it's kind of just been slipped in there. So, yeah.
So it could have gone either way. It just, it was kind of just, it was kind of surprising at the end. Do we want to talk about the ending? Anything else? I think this, anything else about the generalized film you want to mention? Any kind of dislikes that we probably maybe haven't hit on until we get to the end?
Well, like my dislikes, one of my dislikes was some of the comedy kind of felt too much at times. Like it was nice, but I guess because I wanted a scarier film, and I felt like there was like too many of these comedic elements that just kind of took away from that. Gotcha. And so
that's fair.
So now I know what type of film it is. Like if I were to go into it again, I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm expecting, and this is what I will get from this type of film. Like you said, it reminded me more of that slasher / high school revenge, like almost like a Fear Street novel, but like different, and like almost like the college series that came out, because there was a bunch of Fear Street college series ones where it's like you have a ghost or a person getting revenge because of something. So I was like, oh, that reminds me. I can go with that. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that as well for what it was.
Right.
But I did not expect it for when I was walking into.
Right. That's fair. I find Barrett to be very cheeky in his sense of humor. So I really liked that. And I recognized it immediately. He also likes graphic violence. And so everything was quite, again, subdued until you do get to the final act, really, of this movie. And then I was just like, oh, yes, please. Camille channeling some Aaron from Your Next, maybe some Micah Monroe from The Guest.
Yes, yep.
You know, there's just awesome. So the ending to me is very Simon Barrett. The rest of it felt not. You know, I know I was reading that he's been trying to get this movie made for a good number of years around the time that he had written The Guest, which I think came out in 2014. So it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Just nobody was picking it up for him. So yeah, for me, the last 20 minutes of this movie is my favorite because it's very Simon Barrett. It's very action packed, great choreographed violence, very bloody, very brutal. But I feel like leading up to it, it's just like kind of weak and doesn't know what kind of film it wants to be, which I think we're kind of getting to, like supernatural, blending supernatural with the slasher, which you can have. But I just don't know if it was successfully executed, that portion of it, you know?
Yeah, I would completely agree with you in that. And that's how I felt about the ending as well, was that all those really violent scenes, like they kind of came out of nowhere for me because like you weren't,
the rest of it is not a violent movie.
Yeah, it wasn't building up, and then all of a sudden you have these two psychopaths in this form of Bethany and Trevor, and they're just like really crazy murderers. And even then, like Camille having her abilities to know what she can do, and that's why I'm like, okay, I'm getting very, like I said, David and Aaron vibes because you know that whole slashing the neck with the light fixture, and just like like at the end with like Trevor, like the way she sets him up to be like and decapitation. I was like, wow.
Well done. I'm clapping. I was like, I know what she's setting up and I can't wait to watch it happen.
Which I love too. I wanted Trevor dead right away too, because I was just like, oh, because like when that whole like story character was arc was developing with like with her and Trevor, and I was like, I really hope there's no type of relationship thing coming out. I was like, oh, okay, he just ends up being some kind of psychopath who's killed people since he was 12. Cool.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, there was just like to me there was just moments of kind of like, what the fuck? Or I like that, or that was really lame. This is all like kind of like felt convoluted, but at the same time too, though, I remember thinking, walking away from this film being like, it's not a terrible film, but it's not for me. And I kind of had this feeling of, this is more of a film for younger women, like young girls, like, you know, like of like the time that we grew up. Yeah. And like we had like The Craft, and we had like I Know What You Did Last Summer, you know, like people look at those films, I'm like, those aren't great films, but like, yeah, oh my God, they were so amazing. We love them. Like, because we were those teenagers at the time, just wanted that in those films. So I feel like a film like this, the Black Christmas remake, and even from 2019, and then or not 2019, 2018, and then there's The Craft sequel, even though I have my own feelings on that. Legacy, that it's like
for younger folks,
a different generation. Yeah.
And that's fair. And you know, I'd love to hear some younger people's opinions on this movie. And you're right, minus how pretty brutal the ending is, but you know, teenagers these days, I'm sure would be fine with that. So I wish that some of the story wasn't. This was kind of a gripe for me at the end. I wish that there wasn't so much of the story just told to us through the dialogue and left, and some of it like just being left unsaid to Helena and left for us as viewers to understand the full story. Let Helena be a little bit lost with what's going on, because now we have to stand there and just like wait for Camille to explain it all to her. And I was like, oh, I don't need this because I am a viewer and I know what's going on because I've just watched it. So even though that doesn't take a long time per se, it just feels like forever because I'm the viewer and I already know all of this. I don't need it regurgitated back, but I know Helena doesn't know it, but I think for the sake of filmmaking that wasn't a great call. I didn't need to know everything. I know that Carrie was her best friend and she died. She came to find out what it was. Oh, it's because she was killed. Okay, or like what was going on. Like I get now it's turned into a revenge film, which I'm into. 2 thumbs up for revenge because I love revenge. But I didn't need it all set over to me again, if that makes sense. Did you notice that?
I noticed that too, and I think that would have been like a better scene if like she had just left and like left a letter for Helena, and like Helena reads a letter, and then we're like, okay, as the audience, we know what she's explaining everything to Helena, and that's that's it.
Yeah, that's something. Yep,
that would have been something. But I agree with you that too, and also like, I like how you like it's a revenge film, but really is it? Because like she went suspecting that something happened to her friend. Like she was
Yeah.
like, my friend would never kill herself. But what happens if that was the case? What happens if her friend did kill herself because of something else, right? So like the reason why she's there just didn't really hold up for me. I was like, because at one point the way she said it, like I remember like trying to think like so many times, like why could Camilla be there? And one point I believe that she was there because she was an old friend of the first girl who got killed,
Right.
by the 12-year-old. And
I
so
thought
when
that
she
too.
makes
Yeah.
so when she makes a comment to Trevor being like, I'm here to repay a debt, I'm like, oh shit, she's like freaking 30 something and is here to avenge her friend from like years ago, and she was actually hunting down Trevor. But then she's like, no, it was for Carrie. And I was like, but Carrie just died a week ago. I'm confused. Like, how could you suspect that someone actually tried to murder her? Right?
It was like a month later, but
a month later. Sorry, yeah, but it just felt
very short.
Felt very short. So that just didn't hold up for me in terms of a revenge tale.
Right. That's fair.
But he's still great bloody revenge at the end.
So great. A little interview point that I read about Simon Barrett. And this is because I thought it was kind of on point.
Yeah.
So Simon Barrett said this on writing. And instead, what I do is write my ending first, then I create a bunch of space on my document. That way I can see what I'm working towards. I believe the ending is the most important part of the movie. A mediocre film can be saved with a good ending. What do you think about that?
Ooh, okay.
Especially when it comes to this movie.
I was going to say, like, to this movie, I was like, okay, like, that's probably where I had, like, my conflicting feelings about it at the end, because the ending is a movie for me. I'm like, yes, I want that, end type of ending, like you said, the last 20 minutes. But then the first hour and a bit that I had to sit through, I'd be like, this is for teenage girls. This is not for me. I'm not interested. After I started to realize what was going on. So, does the ending of this film save it? It's a start, I would have to say. I wish there was like a little more revision that had happened around the film.
Yeah.
Right? Because like that makes sense. Like the ending of The Guest is so great. The ending of You're Next is so great. The ending of The Blair Witch, kind of. I remember when I watched The Blair Witch, I was angry that I saw her, and I was like, did not want to see her. I never want to see The Blair Witch. That's what makes her scary. But yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting way to write a film. I agree that I think that an average film can be saved by a good ending, but it's more of that. It's more rewarding once you watch it a second time.
Okay.
Because as you're watching something like this movie, I would go into Seance with a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
And enjoy it, I'm sure, a hell of a lot more than I did when I'm watching it for the very first time. Because you're right, there's an entire hour, like 60 minutes of my time watching this movie where it's a little muddled, a little beige, a little flat, little things here and there that I enjoy, but then it punches me at the end, and I love a good punch. But going back into it a second time, and I will rewatch this, I'm sure I'll like it a lot better. But on an initial watch, if you're watching an average film and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, a lot of things make sense now. Oh, okay. It's hard to kind of like go back, you know what I mean? With how you're feeling as you're watching a movie to kind of wrap your mind up at it at the end. So I would love to I'm going to rewatch it, and I'm sure I will like it a hell of a lot more second time around. And that happens for films with me. If I'm just like, and then I rewatch, I'm like, oh yeah, no. Now that I kind of like get the whole picture and what's happening and the ending and everything, because sometimes it's not the journey, it's the destination. I get that, but sometimes, knowing the destination makes it worthwhile. But if you don't know the destination, the journey's a little meh.
Yeah, no,
that's my analogy.
I like that analogy a lot, because I have had that experience as well. And I will say that more recently with like Scream 4. Like I remember when I first saw that one, I'm like, meh, I don't care much for this film, whatever. And then when watching it again on a rewatch, knowing how it ends, I'm like, oh, this is so good. Like, right. So you almost wonder, like, yeah, I would definitely give this one. And even in my own mind, I said I would give this film an adult. I even thought, I'm like, I would show this film to my nieces when they get older, right? Because I just, this was kind of a fun film. This would be a fun film for them at like a late night sleepover type thing. And then feel like a little more grown up when they get to the end.
Yeah, they'd be like, ah! Yeah, totally. Add that to the list of showing nieces. So final verdict, Jess?
So my final verdict for this film is, like, I walked away feeling entertained, but also a bit disappointed because of what I was expecting and hoping for when I walk into it, knowing what Simon Barrett has done, enjoying all of his other work. But like I said, at the same time too, though, when I think about the audience, it changes my perspective. And I'm just like, okay, not every film is going to be for me. Not every horror film has to be for me in my generation that is coming out now. There is a whole slew of other young horror fans coming out, and they need to have films like this to really like gear their love into the genre. So when I changed my perspective on that, I'm like, you know what? This is a decent film that I would recommend to younger horror fans just to start them out on that journey. And then, like you said, I would rewatch this film again, knowing what I know and maybe looking at it in a different way. But yeah, so my final verdict, I'm starting to realize that not all films are for me, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they're a bad film. It just means that I have to view it in a different light perspective.
So would you recommend our listeners watch this?
I would recommend it if you're looking for a good time, but don't go in looking to be scared, because you're not going to get scared.
There you go. For me, I personally thought it was a very fine movie, but I loved the ending. Does it make up for the whole movie? Almost. And I kind of explained, rewatching or whatever, but I would watch this again. Absolutely. If you're a fan of Simon Barrett's work, then I would recommend it. But if you don't care about him, then you probably could just leave this alone and never watch it. I think that would be fine. But if you want an introduction to what Simon Barrett can write and do, then watch The Guest instead.
That is a very true statement. Yes, 100%.
But if you watch this movie as your introduction to Simon Barrett, you'll be like, I'm intrigued, but you might feel a little lackluster. Like you might not be as intrigued. So watch The Guest first and then watch everything else, because he is excellent. And I've seen everything he's done. So I can say that from a fan perspective, objectively, I've seen everything. So, and enjoyed everything and almost loved everything. So there's that. This is the Simon Barrett episode, actually.
I know I was going to say, I'm like, I've actually seen quite a bit of Simon Barrett's work now as well, too, just because of you, and be like, you should watch this one. You should watch this one. And I'm like, okay, I objectively enjoy what he's doing, and I look forward to seeing more of what comes out, as especially like this was his directorial debut.
Yeah.
So everywhere, we all start somewhere. So he's getting his feet wet. And so let's just, keep going and with what he's doing. Yeah.
I'm very excited for him. I like him. I've listened to interviews, read them. I like him as a person. So I am excited for him and seeing what else he does with his life. So cool. That's Simon Barrett. Yeah. #1 fan. So that's ends our episode on the Spinsters Get Current on Seance from 2021. What do you folks think? Definitely, now that we've recorded this and once it's out, please let's actually start talking about it, because you now know our thoughts and feelings. Not sure what we're going to do next time, but we will probably see you in 2022 with a brand new episode of the Spinsters Get Current.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this for the first time, check us out on all of our social medias. Just look up Spinsters of Horror. We're also on Letterboxd and YouTube. And until then, guys, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I stop recording? Oh, there it is.